Hey everybody, thanks for joining. I apologize for being a little bit late. There was a lot to unpack and I had a couple meetings this morning I had to work around. So it's been a bit of a busy morning, but here we are. So I'm going to be going through a lot of the announcements that Grant over at Blackmagic made this morning and summarize and then share some of my thoughts. As I'm going, I'm actually going to be trying to pay attention to the chat room as well. So as you guys have things to say there, I will try and incorporate those. I did try to set up the little pop-ups to work, see if they'll work here. So we'll just test one here real quick. Let's see. One that says hello. Not showing up. So may have to do without. Yeah, not working. So anyway, okay, so I might just have to read the comments live. I didn't have time to get the overlay working. But anyway, so yeah, I will definitely try to pay attention to those comments and include them as part of the stream. So, all right, so they made a lot of announcements this morning. It's a stream that was over 2 hours, I believe, start to finish. And a lot of new products, a lot of software updates, a lot more focus on software this time than I've seen in the past. Other than that, I didn't really, well, a lot of cloud stuff, I should say that. But other than that, I didn't really notice any other particular themes. It wasn't heavily 2110 like it was last year, but definitely a lot of cloud-related things, storage, the cloud, streaming through the cloud, etc. And additional products to sort of simplify that workflow a little bit and add new functionality as well. So the first product that Grant actually announced and talked about was a new cloud backup. And I should actually be able to share some of these things here. I apologize for my not being quite as prepared as I probably should be. But so products, and then we'll go. So this is going to be under cloud and network storage. So go ahead and share that. There we go. All right, so the first product they introduced was this Cloud Backup 8. So this is a rack mount device which allows you to install up to 8 hard drives, like 3.5 inch hard drives, and use those to back up your cloud data. So he didn't get into a ton of details about what else it might be capable of doing, but so yeah, if you want to back up the stuff you got in the cloud, you can buy this device, pop in some hard drives, and set it to go. So you can see there, get a lot of storage in a 3 rack unit. Has lots of 10 gig Ethernet connectivity on the back, so 4 ports of 10 gig Ethernet. Has their HDMI output, so you can monitor the status of what's going on, and has a USB connection, so you can connect a computer, and that'll give you access to the Ethernet ports that are on the device. So have a computer actually jump on your network with a 10 gig interface by going through that. So, an interesting product. Probably not one that I'm going to get, but I can see where they're people who are really invested in the cloud infrastructure. So people who are collaborating on projects in Resolve. This is going to be really cool. You can also use this as a way to store footage from cameras that are being synchronized up to the cloud with some of the software updates that have been available and are coming there. So yeah, some cool functionality available on that. So that's pricing on that's $14.95. They say available now, but to put that in Blackmagic English, that means it'll probably be sometime this fall. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it might actually show up a little bit earlier than that, but that's kind of the gist of what we're looking at right now. All right, so next product that they announced is what they call the Video Hub Mini, and they offered 3 different models of this thing, so that's going to be under routing and distribution. All right, so these guys right here, so the Mini 4x2, the Mini 6x2, Mini 8x4, so these are 1/3, 1/2, and 2/3 rack units. So I'll click on one of these here. So these are SDI devices. They are 4K UHD. So you're able to ingest 4 sources, 6 sources, or 8 sources into the various different models, and then route them to either 2 or 4 outputs, depending on which model you get. So just a very, very cool little mini video routing switcher that you can mount on your rack and allow you to, I don't know, change the sources that are going into your switcher or to a monitor or recorder or whatever. So interesting. These little flaps here on the front, those open up and then they get access to SDI ports. This one has one SDI port, which is an override for input 4, and then there's a USB-C connection on the front there, which basically provides a webcam output, which mirrors on this small one. That one mirrors output 2, and or is that right? Yes, output 2. Yeah, so mirrors output 2, and then on the 6x2 and the 8x4, the USB always outputs the last. USB webcam output always mirrors the last output number, and then the front input always overrides. Interesting. So I wrote down input 6 on 6x2, and then input 2 on the 8x4. My notes might be wrong on that, but it's kind of what he called an emergency input. So if you needed to quickly connect a piece of gear that's not in your rack, you have an exposed input to do that. So that's what those look like. The inputs do have loop outputs. Is that right? Yeah, inputs do have loop outputs. So every one of your inputs can be looped to one of the outputs, or is looped to one of the outputs. And these have a clean switch functionality. So basically, that allows you to resync one of your inputs or all of your inputs to the outputs. It's actually technically the outputs that are being resynced. So it has a reference input, and you can actually force it to resync the outputs to basically be gen locked to an external source. So I don't think a lot of people in the Blackmagic world are probably doing that, but it's cool that they include that. So 3 great models. What they're saying here, prices are $595, $795, and $995 on those 3 different models. And again, available now-ish, which means sometime between now and probably the end of the year. We'll see. But cool addition to the Video Hub lineup. Just some little tiny mini router devices. I can see some situations where this could be useful. Like for example, on the Constellation switchers, the multi-view outputs, you might want to be able to send those or a program output to a monitor, or maybe you loop one of those back into one of the inputs so it can be routed to on any of your aux outputs. This makes it easier to do that. So kind of cool that they've come up with that. So I probably would have liked to have seen 4 outputs on the mid-size one rather than just the 2, but it looks like they kind of ran out of space in order to do any more than what they did. So anyway, so interesting products there. Not sure if how many of those I'll get, if any, but we'll see, and I'll play with those at NAB coming up here in the next few days and kind of share my thoughts associated with that. Okay, all right, so the next product that they talked about is going to be probably in their broadcast converters. So they introduced a new up-down cross converter. Where is that guy? So it's another rack unit. They listed, yeah, it's 2110. Must be this one right here. Okay, scroll down and find the actual model. So this is a 2110 unit. It converts video sources up to 2160p at up 60 frames per second between SDI, HDMI, and 2110. There you go. This one right here. So this guy. All right, so this 1/3 rack unit, like I said, it has inputs for SDI and HDMI. Let's see, you probably have to go to the tech specs in order to get the rear panel on this guy. So 2110 up down cross, there it is. And okay, there we go. So there's the ports on the back. So HDMI in and out, SDI in and out, reference connections over here. And it has the 10 gig Ethernet port, so it can also do 2110. So it only processes one source, but you can select between any of the 3, so SDI, HDMI, or 2110, and then all of your outputs will mirror that. So kind of cool. You can convert between any of the available formats. You can see there's quite a few listed there, from any format to any other format within the device. He didn't say anything about latency. That's always something to worry about. 2110, their 2110 stuff tends to have at least 2 to 3 frames just without any sort of conversion. And a lot of their conversions they're able to do within a frame, but we don't know what the latency on this is technically going to be like for sure. So anyway, yeah, also has the loop out. So I'm glad they're including loop outs and so much more to their equipment. That really helps quite a lot. So if you need to have one signal get routed to multiple devices, you're able to use the loop outs to do that without having to have a dedicated video routing switcher or video distribution amplifier of any kind. So anyway, this device looks pretty interesting. I think this is probably is meant to take place of their older Terranex Mini, some of the Terranex Mini devices with the conversions, but it also does signal format conversion and frame rate conversion as well, which is something the old Terranex did not. So the only product they've had in their lineup previously which could do that, which handle 4K, were the Terranex Express and Terranex AV products. So this is bringing that functionality down in price quite a lot and taking up a lot less space. So this unit is going to be $595 and supposed to be available in May. Let's see if there are any other notes on that one that are relevant here. The reference output is live even without a reference input, and that can mirror your 2110 clock source. So that's interesting there. Okay. Alrighty. So yeah, so up down cross. They also introduced where was it? This guy right here. No, that's not it. It's another converter. So okay, there we go. These guys right here. Blackmagic 2110 IP SDI to HDMI 12G and Blackmagic 2110 IP SDI to HDMI 12G. So the stories associated with these is they were looking for a converter that was going to work a little bit better for people who were doing color grading, so like people working in Resolve or whatever, and they wanted to use OLED TVs because OLED TVs actually are pretty phenomenal when it comes to color accuracy, and they do make pretty good color grade monitors, but you really kind of needed a good LUT processor in order to make sure that everything is just absolutely bang on. And so they created these two devices. The difference between these two is the number of audio channels that are output. So the top one does 2 audio channels of output, and the bottom one does 10 channels of audio output. Those are on XLRs. So the 10 output is basically designed to work with surround sound, and so you're able to decode your multi-channel surround sound audio tracks and then play those through your studio monitors. And so this is it supports 2110. Obviously it supports SDI as well as sources, so you can actually display either one of those on your connected display. And again, let's go to the tech specs section here in order to get the rear connector shot on that. So there you go. So it's got your 2110, and then it's got your SDI input with the SDI loop out, your HDMI output for your monitor, has your XLR audio outputs, and then it has a remote jack, which is basically designed to be used as an external. We use with an external potentiometer in order to do audio level control. So volume control for the various audio outputs there, and that does work with the 10 outputs on the larger version of that. So not something that's going to interest me much, but it's a cool product that some people are going to be taking advantage of. The 2 versions of that are going to be for $495 or $795, and are supposed to be released in the May to June time frame. All right, now before I move on, we'll go through the comments here. So it looks like most of the comments are around other products that were announced that I haven't gotten to quite yet. So let's move on. Although we have a bunch of hellos, I wish I could display them. I'm not sure why that is. They're not showing up. But anyway, okay. All right. So next product that they announced was a capture card with 2110. So it's going to be under capture and playback. This is a new deck link. There we go. The DeckLink IP100G. This is 8+ channel capture device for working with video, 2110 IP video sources and being able to play out to 2110 as well. So they're saying they've got it working with 8 channels and up to Ultra HD resolutions. They are trying to do 32 channels of video with HD video, but they can't guarantee that just yet. So they're calling it an 8-channel device at the moment, and maybe later on with firmware or newer software, they'll be able to extend that up to as many as 32 connections as well. You can see there on the picture that it has 2 SFP connections for connection to fiber, or most likely going to be fiber for connection to your 2110 network. Uses a GPU direct DMA, so it's not putting a heavy load on your CPU, just getting the video data in and out. So anybody who's working with 2110 and needs to get computer video in and out of a computer, this is going to be an interesting way to do that. That card is supposed to be available in Q2 of this year for a price of $1,795. And since I'm not invested in 2110, probably won't be something that I pick up, but there are some people who are going down that path, and so if they want to integrate a computer into their workflow, their 2110 workflow, that's going to be an interesting way to do that. Okay. All right, now we're starting to get into the more interesting stuff. So they announced a couple of new switchers. So first one really surprised me. I had no idea this was coming. So the ATEM 4ME Constellation 4K Plus. Let's see if they have any additional shots of this thing. There we go. This is a monster. So yeah, this is a new switcher, ATEM lineup, part of the Constellation line. It has double the number of inputs and outputs of their previous biggest model. So their previous model was 40 inputs, 24 outputs. This new one has 80 inputs and 48 outputs. So we'll take a look at the back here. So that is a heck of a lot of SDI connections on the back of that thing. Yeah, it's going to be a fairly big video production house that's going to be needing this kind of thing. But there it is. So yeah, so 80 inputs, 12G SDI, all those standards converted and synchronized, and then 48 outputs, and all those outputs are routable. And one of the most noteworthy things about that is that they are now allowing the multi-views to be used as sources on those outputs, which they have not done previously on any of the Constellation lineup. So certainly glad to see that. Like, I've previously always had to loop my multi-view outputs back into 2 of the inputs in order to make those routable to any of the outputs, but this new model makes that possible. He didn't make any mention of whether that's going to be something that they're going to backport into the smaller versions of the Constellations or not, or even if that's possible, but that's cool that that's being added as well. So this unit, as with some of the other ones, has dual power, so you got two power input jacks there in order to make sure that you've got redundancy there. And you can see that they added timecode input and output, which is something that they have not had on the Constellation line previously, which is nice. That's been lacking. I've heard a lot of people complain about that. In order to accommodate all the audio channels associated with all these inputs and outputs, they've increased the number of MADI outputs and inputs. So it now has 4 MADI outs and 2 MADI inputs. So a different upgrade there. And reference input, still no reference output. They added dual Ethernet on this, so you've got a little bit of redundancy / kind of a hub, so you can connect multiple devices if you're not working on an actual Ethernet network there. But other than that, it is basically just a larger version of their 4ME 4K switcher. So yeah, interesting product there. So pricing on that one's going to be $12,995. And it's supposed to be available in June. So that's something I'll take a look at here at NAB in a few days and get you guys some video if I can. But so yeah, cool new product there. Again, something I didn't see coming, but cool nonetheless. Okay, all right, so next one, they introduced a new hyperdeck, and this is actually probably one of the products that they announced that I'm most excited about. So we'll take a look at that. So disc recorders, here we go. So they introduced a new shuttle model, which I didn't think I'd get excited about a shuttle, but this new HyperDeck Shuttle 4K Pro. So this is pretty cool. So this is a little tabletop desktop unit, sort of like the smaller one I have here. But it incorporates a screen and it operates in 4K. The other big thing that I'm glad they did here is move to SDI instead of HDMI. So those of us who do work in video professionally on site for customers. SDI is just so much better than HDMI, so grateful that they have this unit here. So that is a touchscreen right there, so you can navigate the menus and control it with that. So scrubbing and starting, stop playing playback and configuration and everything can be done through the touchscreen interface on this thing. Pretty cool. And let's see, it has built-in scopes, so you can do vector scope, waveform monitor, histogram, and you can even do a little picture-in-picture window on top of that. It has the ability to do internal storage, and this is not just a cache, it's actually, so you pop an SSD into the bottom, an M.2 NVMe SSD, pop that in the bottom, and that allows you to record directly onto the unit, so you don't have to plug in external storage. That's kind of cool. So, you know, you do like a 2 terabyte, a 4 terabyte drive inside of there, and then always have that present. And that storage is actually accessible on the network. So as you're recording on this device, you could be copying, but you actually have somebody editing that footage in Resolve, or allegedly some of the other editors out there like Premiere or whatever, be able to access that in real time. It also has cloud sync features, so you can have those files get uploaded to the Blackmagic cloud. It's kind of how they've done with some of their other products. So that is kind of a cool thing. So we have a picture of the back here. They added quite a lot of connectivity on this thing. There we go. So we have, let's start over here on the right. So we've got headphone jack, a 1/4 inch or 6.25 millimeter. Thankfully, they've got that on there. That's cool. So you can monitor your audio. You've got SDI outputs A and B, so it's able to do separate fill and key on video on playback, which they have restricted for 4K at least to their 4K Pro HyperDeck Studio that they've had in the past. And then on SDI, we have an SDI in and a loop output. There is also a separate monitor output, so you can see on-screen display of your storage and your recording time and mode and a bunch of other stuff. There's quite a few different options that are shown on screen there. It has the monitor output on HDMI as well. It has a connection for an external disk, so you can record to an external SSD, USB-C SSD, and your reference input and output, so you can do your gen locking. And then the Ethernet jack on this is actually a 10 gig Ethernet port, and that makes it a little easier to copy files on and off of the device. Allows you to have a lot more bandwidth as compared to regular 1 gig Ethernet, so you're able to copy files at more than 100 megabytes per second. You can do basically up to 1 gigabyte per second with that. And then your power records on SD cards like most of their other HyperDeck models, and then it also has the RS422 remote control jack that they put on basically all of their HyperDeck devices for deck control, which would work with their HyperDeck Extreme remote if you wanted to use it, or any other number of editing controllers that's been available as well. It does have the 3D LUT capability that they've been putting into some of their converters. I don't recall seeing that on any HyperDeck previously, so this may be something that's new that or something that slipped by me in the past. So if you wanted to have a LUT applied, say if you've got it connected to a camera that's outputting S-Log3 or something like that, you would be able to apply a LUT to the final output. I doubt it applies it to the recording. I could be wrong on that. He didn't say either way. Yeah. It also has a digital slate functionality, so if you swipe on the screen, you can basically say the name of the project, the clip number that you're working on, which take it is, that kind of thing. Allegedly mark a specific clip as a good take or whatever. That's more for a cinematic style workflow than it is for, say, live production. But the cool thing about this thing, in addition to the touchscreen, it also has that huge knob on there for jogging and shuttling around your footage. So if you need to rewind to a specific point in time or go to the middle of a clip, you're able to do that pretty quickly with that giant knob. So that's like the one redeeming thing that it's been available on their older HD version of that. I have enjoyed that. One other thing, it does actually have their teleprompting software capability as well. So if you copy an RTF file onto your SD card and pop it in there, you can actually set it up where it plays that out as if it's a video clip for use with a teleprompter. And having the display on there really makes a huge difference for that, because previously with their older HD only model, you couldn't see what you're doing unless you hooked up a monitor. So very cool that it has the built-in display for that. It does have a little tiny speaker up here, so if you want to be able to hear what the audio during playback, that is available there as well. Multi-channel audio recording, as they traditionally always do. But this looks like a pretty cool unit for doing video playback. So you're producing an event and you've got lower thirds that are pre-animated or video clips that your client has provided. This would actually be a really cool unit for that, particularly because of that big screen and the fact that it's a touch screen, so you're able to navigate between clips. And also it has that clip button on there, which allows you to basically say only play one clip at a time, which is kind of critical when you're doing video playback of that type. You don't want it advancing on to the next clip. On their other HyperDeck units, that's kind of difficult to achieve. They tend to want to continue playing or looping a single clip over and over again. So having the dedicated clip button on there is really cool. So I will definitely be picking one of these up specifically for the purpose of video playback because of that and that separate fill and key outputs, so I can do transparent graphics with that one. So let's jump into the chat here and see if anybody has any comments that are relevant to what we're looking at now. Alrighty, let's see. HyperDeck Shuttle is so cool, yeah. So that's again, that's probably the product of all the ones that were announced today that I thought was the most interesting. So, all right, okay, all right. So we'll move on to the next product they announced, which was probably, I'm guessing, the one that most people were most excited about. So let me go back here. I'll pull that up before I cut back. All right, so next product they announced that I think was pretty cool is ATEM Mini Extreme ISO G2. So it's a brand new version of their Mini Extreme switcher that they've had. They've added a lot to this. It's quite an upgrade, and as such, it actually is a fair amount more expensive. Oh, that reminds me, I didn't give you guys pricing on the HyperDeck Shuttle 4K Pro. That's $14.95 and should be available in June. So they also have a version which has the 2 terabyte storage pre-installed for you, and that's $18.95. So you pay a little bit of a premium. So I would just get the cheaper one and do your own storage. Okay, all right, so ATEM Mini, so brand new model here. So ATEM Mini's been extremely successful product line for them in the past, and they have just replaced the Mini Extreme ISO with this new Generation 2 model. So it gets brand new buttons, so it's the higher quality buttons that they've had on their Constellation switchers, their advanced control panels, some of the Video Hub products, etc., instead of the rubber buttons that are kind of cheesy that are on these smaller products, all the ATEM Mini and ATEM SDI line previously. So a bit of an upgrade there. You notice that it only has one row of buttons, so instead of having separate rows for preview and program, it has one row, and then you have a preview button here, which when you press it switches the buttons over to preview. I'm guessing it probably has you can configure it to do program, preview, bus rather than cut bus, as all the ATEM Minis and SDI models have had in the past. Those of us who are video professionals tend to prefer that workflow rather than live cutting on the buttons there. But so anyways, it's got the higher quality buttons, and then it's got dedicated controls for audio. It's got a much more advanced interface for controlling audio compared to what we've had in the past. Previously, it was basically just level control and on-off, or audio follow video. And with this, we get access to EQ, compression, all those kinds of things on the device itself. And they actually have a new display that can be output to any of the HDMI outputs, which is a full screen audio configuration editing control screen, which they have never done before. So it looks like they're taking a lot of the technology that they added to the Television Studio HD8 and Television Studio 4K8 and including that in this particular product line. So this one has 8 HDMI inputs and 3 HDMI outputs. So they've added one additional output compared to what they've had in the past. And they've done a bunch of other cool things as well. So I don't think they show the rear panel on this one on the main page. So we'll go here and take a look at the back. So they've done a number of cool things here. So I'll start at the right. So we have a 1/4-inch headphone jack. Hallelujah, because that's the ones that had headphone, ATEM Mini and SDI that had headphones in the past. That was just an 1/8-inch jack. Thank goodness we could finally get a professional connector back there. We have combo TRS and XLR audio inputs on this thing. Again, thank goodness. So proper audio inputs on there, not just balanced, but on combo XLR TRS, which is awesome. It has a MADI input, so you can bring in a whole bunch of channels with MADI. I didn't see that one coming, but they seem to really be pushing in the direction of adding more professional audio processing in a lot of their switchers in the last few years. And then we have the 8 HDMI inputs, and then just jumping right above that, we have the 3 HDMI outputs. It also has a Thunderbolt connection. I can talk about that more here in a minute. And then a dual USB-C like they've had in the past, where you can plug in external storage such as a USB flash drive, or plug a computer for controlling the switcher directly rather than going through Ethernet. And then over here we actually have 2 Ethernet jacks. So it has a 1 gig Ethernet jack, which is basically just for controlling the device and streaming out to the internet. And then we have a 10 gig Ethernet connection, which allows you to access the storage. It's plugged into a brand new CF Express slot that is on here. So they've upgraded. Well, they've added internal storage, which ATEM Minis have never had in the past, but they've upgraded from SD, which they've had on their HyperDecks, to CF Express. Because this is an ISO switcher, that's a lot of footage. I'm sure the SD card interface is just not fast enough to handle all that data that's being generated by all of your 8 video inputs, as well as the dedicated program output and the MADI input and other audio inputs as well. So it seems like they had to go with CF Express in order to get enough bandwidth for that. But that is accessible as a network storage device from your computer. So again, you can edit that footage live. And in particular, one of the cool things you can do with that is do replay. So with the software update that they announced to DaVinci Resolve and the firmware updates on some of their products last year, the Resolve product is capable of doing replay. I wouldn't call it instant. There is a little bit of a workflow there. But you're able to do replay, and this device takes that to the next level by providing the Thunderbolt connection right here that provides all those video feeds and additional video sources coming from the computer all over a single cable. And he also mentioned that this would power a computer. I'm skeptical about how much power it's going to supply since the device runs on 12 volts. It's probably not going to come with a massive power supply. So you're probably not going to get like 100 watts out of this thing for your computer, but it does provide some power. But having that interface allows you to do everything that you need for instant replay over a single cable connection, and also gets your computer on the network via the Ethernet jacks that are on this device. So one cable does an awful lot. So a lot of cool things happening there. It sounds like they've made a significant investment in improving the instant replay capabilities of a lot of their products. So hopefully this is going to be a little bit better than some of the ones they've had in the past. All right, now let's go back to the front panel here. Let's go back to this display here. Blow that up a bit. All right, there we go. So in addition to selecting your video inputs on here, you're also able to use these buttons to select the video outputs, the sources for the various video outputs that are on the back. So as mentioned, it has 3 HDMI outputs. The first 2 of those you can reassign from the front panel. So they've got a button over here, which basically when you press and hold that, it turns these buttons here into input selection buttons. So you press and hold that button and then press one of your camera sources that will output that camera to that particular HDMI output. Or you can press the preview if you want to route the preview, or press either cut or auto if you want to output the main program of the switcher to those outputs. There's also a dedicated button here for routing the multi-view to that output, so pretty cool to have that. They have has 6 dedicated buttons for controlling macros. Those are up here across the top, so you can watch the first 6 macros that are stored in your switcher. They've had a handful of macro buttons in the past, but this is extended a little bit. And then as mentioned with a little bit earlier, some of these buttons over here are used to control the audio capabilities of the device. So like there's a button to go into EQ editing mode. So once you've selected one of your audio sources with the selection buttons here, you can press that button, and that will take you to a screen where these controls, these knobs and buttons actually are used to control the EQ or the compressor or the gate or whatever it is. So I found that rather interesting that they're doing that, because I'm not sure that that's ever really going to get used, and not because the audio processing features aren't cool, but if somebody is live switching on this panel, you're gonna have your technical director that's using the panel in order to do your video direction, and probably is going to be a little bit too busy to do audio as well. So if you have a separate panel that you're using to control video switching, I could see somebody maybe using the panel here for doing the audio processing. But it did seem a little interesting to me that they're going that direction of using the front panel for doing the audio manipulation. So let's see what else am I missing here. Oh, the Thunderbolt video input and output does have separate fill and key, so you're able to do alpha channels playing directly out of Resolve for stingers and that kind of thing. You're able to control the instant replay through some buttons on the front panel. So there's the cue, run, and dump buttons right on the ATEM unit itself. So you're able to trigger playback of replay there. Obviously, you can't select which video clip or which portion of a clip you're playing from there, but yeah. Also, of course, has Blackmagic Cloud Sync, so a lot of cool things going on with that. This unit is going to be available allegedly in June, which probably means more like October, November, December range, I would guess. Did I get that right? My page just got mixed up here. So, sorry, June. Yeah, it's June. And available for $1,995. That's a pretty significant price jump from where it was before. So I think the previous generation was, if I remember right, was $1,395 for the ISO model, if my memory is serving correct. So that is a pretty significant price jump compared to the old one, but it does add quite a lot of functionality that the old one did not have. There's a lot of additional video processing that's happening in there that was just not available previously. So anyway. Not a product for me. I'm not interested in that as it is, but interesting product for a few. I think that the price is probably a little high for their target audience, but we'll see. We shall see on that. I'm a little disappointed to see that they didn't announce an SDI version of that. The SDI version would be a lot more interesting to me, and I think a lot of other people who work in video professionally. There's just a lot more. SDI would just work so much better, especially if you have cable runs that are more than a few meters. So anyway, but cool that they've announced that nonetheless. All right, moving on to the next set of products. All right, so the next new products were actually not new products. So they've traditionally had the Web Presenter HD and the Web Presenter 4K. They've renamed them. So yeah, these are essentially the same products that they were, just with a new name. So we'll see what happens with that. So and they did that because the name Web Presenter is not necessarily a great reflection of what the devices actually do. So they've renamed them, so they're now the Blackmagic Streaming Encoder 4K or HD. It's interesting that they list the same product twice on there. I think that they probably messed that up. Anyway, so other than that, no changes mentioned. I think they probably will have some software updates to work with Blackmagic Cloud. I don't think he explicitly said that, but that's kind of the direction that they're moving. So yeah. In addition to that, see, it's not on this page. Oh, okay, never mind. So the streaming decoder. So this is a new product. So this is a brand new product. This takes place of the streaming bridge that they've had in the past. This basically acts as a video receiver for any of the Blackmagic products that are able to stream. So that includes the Web Presenter, the ATEM switchers, ATEM mini switchers, ATEM SDI switchers, most models, and their studio cameras. They're also adding some of their broadcast and film style cameras to that as well. So pretty cool that you're able to do a lot of different video sources and bring them into your production via this device. So you hook this up to the internet, and you're able to send video to this thing from pretty much anywhere in the world. I'll get to more of that here in a minute, because they've done some pretty cool stuff with their cloud services in order to make this a lot more useful than what it has been in the past. But so anyway, so this is basically the new version of the streaming bridge, but with 4K support and H.264 and H.265, and has HDMI on the back, if I remember right. So let me find a picture of the back of this thing, see which connections are available on it. It also has USB webcam support. Okay, I'll just go over tech specs. That'll be available there. Okay, there we go. So we have SDI input and SDI loop out. We have a dedicated monitor out, so you can monitor the status of the stream on a monitor. It has an HDMI monitor output. This is not a clean HDMI feed. I don't know whether that's configurable or not. Probably, I would guess probably not. So the HDMI is probably just the same monitor display that you get for the SDI, where it has the overlays of what's going on with your stream status and whatnot. It has a USB webcam output, and it has an Ethernet connection in order to connect to your network in order to bring that in. Then it has redundant power through 120 or 240 volt, and then 12 volt power as well. So you can plug in both of those, and then have and then have redundancy on your video. Oh wait, that was the wrong one. So there we go. So here's the streaming decoder. So same connections, but yeah. So anyway, so interesting product. I will almost definitely pick one of these things up, because there are situations where I would love to be able to bring in video from a remote location, and they happen to be using Blackmagic equipment. So pretty cool there. I hope that they're working out some of the bugs that they've had with some of these products, streaming products in the past. We'll see. So I am streaming here on my web presenter 4K today, and so far it looks like I'm not really experiencing the same buffer filling issue that I've seen with a lot of their streaming devices in the past. So anyway, okay. All right. Now, with that said, the next thing that he talked about, and ties right into this, I don't know if they have this listed on their website as a separate product. We'll click in here, see if they have that listed here. But they announced a new service for Blackmagic Cloud called the Streaming Router. No, they don't list it here. All right, so let's go to me. So the streaming router is a pretty cool thing. So one of the problems that they've had with the streaming bridge and the Television Studio HD8, I believe ISO, the ISO model, in the past is that it can be very difficult to set those things up in order to receive video, because very often people who are running these things don't have networking expertise, or you're working at a facility where you don't have access to networking, where they can't open up specific ports if you need to bring in things from the internet. So what they've done is I've actually added a video routing capability as part of Blackmagic Cloud. This allows you to set up an arbitrary number of video inputs and an arbitrary number of video outputs up in the cloud itself, and then your streaming devices which are able to do streaming. So the streaming encoder, some of their cameras, allegedly the ATEM switchers that have streaming capability, will be able to send the video directly up to the cloud into this virtual video router, and then you can take those sources and then send them somewhere else where you have a video streaming decoder of some kind, whether it be the device I was just showing you, or allegedly, they didn't announce this, but I'm going to guess that they will be adding that as a firmware update to the Television Studio HD8 ISO. But also, you can also do this into DaVinci Resolve as well. So you're much more easily able to take remote video sources and then get them into your local video production workflow. So let's see. All this supports the typical Blackmagic tally and camera control. So if you got a remote camera and it goes live, you can have the little tally light, red tally light, come on whenever that happens. So it's almost like the camera is local, other than some latency. Speaking of latency, as they were demonstrating some of this stuff, it seemed like the latency was actually pretty reasonable. It looked like it was for the demo, it looked like it was between a quarter and a half a second, which is not terrible for something that's going out over the internet. But what you could do with this kind of thing, though, is you could do an entire production remotely if you have enough devices that are capable of receiving video sources locally, and cameras that are set up remotely. So looks like Blackmagic is really going to start embracing the cloud workflow in terms of live video production. They're moving in that direction. And the next product that I'm going to talk about is actually very much along those lines, and allows you to do some of the video production type stuff that we do entirely in the cloud. So you don't need to have a dedicated ATEM switcher. But let's see. As part of the streaming router capability that they have in the Blackmagic cloud, you're able to bring in sources from other cloud accounts as well. So if somebody wants to share a source from their own account to yours, you can do that. They'll have a little software application that you'll be able to download here soon, which is called DaVinci Monitor, which allows you to connect to any cloud source and route it and view it locally. And they have yet to determine pricing, but Grant hinted that the pricing on that would be something like $2 per destination per month. So if you had 4 outputs on your cloud stream router, then it costs you roughly $8 per month, which is very reasonable for what it is that they're doing, particularly because video can be very data intensive. So pretty cool there. All right, another product that they announced, which is not going to be available for a little bit. It's still pretty early on. I don't see it listed on their website here, but it falls right in line with all this cloud stuff, and it is a new software product that's called ATEM Cloud Constellation HD4. It sounds like they'll be doing larger versions of this. But this is basically an ATEM switcher that lives entirely in the cloud, so no hardware sitting in front of you at your location. This operates entirely up on servers that are up in the cloud on the internet. So this initial version, they're working on a version that has 4 inputs and 3 outputs, and those outputs are multi-view program and then an auxiliary source. But they indicated that bigger switchers are coming later. They're just not quite ready to do that just yet. So it's entirely cloud-based. It's a switcher that accepts video in H.264, H.265, and it has a standards converter built into it. So if you're switching in 1080 and you've got a 720p source, it's able to do that conversion. It's a switcher that has a single DVE. It has 4 upstream keyers and 2 downstream keyers, which is an awful lot for a switcher that only has 4 inputs. It does include a 16 input multi-viewer that you can configure and choose sources for and whatnot. And one of the cool things about this is that it's actually going to work with the ATEM software control software running on your local computer. So you got your local computer running the software, it's controlling the switcher up in the cloud. And that also means that it will work with their hardware control panels as well. He specifically demoed using the micro ATEM panel that they announced a year ago, but he's saying that they'll have firmware updates for the advanced panels that will allow them to be used as well. Supports tally and camera control just like all their other switchers do. Let's see, what else do I have? Includes 2 media players, has a media player, has media pool. It looked like 20 sources on that, but there's effectively not a real limit on that. If they wanted to just expand that, they could. And then it has their traditional Fairlight audio mixer with all the traditional audio editing capabilities, compression, equalization, and all of those. So pretty interesting on that. So being able to switch video completely in the cloud, it's pretty awesome. And it really does look like it's a full ATEM that runs entirely off-site. You get your ability to do all your normal transitions. You can do overlays with upstream keyers, downstream keyers, etc. So very interesting there. He didn't say anything about recording. I would assume that it's going to record to the cloud. That would be kind of silly not to, but interesting thing there. No pricing was mentioned on that, and he didn't really give a firm timeline on when that's going to be available, but it seemed like a beta version of that might be available before too long. So we might be able to play with that here before too much time passes. We will see how that goes. All right, that was probably, I think, the most shocking announcement of the whole thing was the ATEM cloud constellation. All right, another one that I kind of skipped over I'll jump back over here. So another thing they announced was the ATEM micro camera panel. So this is kind of a small version of the ATEM camera control panel. So it allows you to do the color control on any of the Blackmagic cameras. So you're able to adjust white balance, exposure, iris, black level, all those kinds of things, everything you traditionally get with the Blackmagic cameras, and do so in a unit that's a lot less expensive than what they've had in the past. This connects to a computer via USB-C or Bluetooth. It doesn't go directly onto the network like their larger products, the camera control panel or their advanced panels or whatever. So, but I think it's pretty cool. So anybody who actually does use Blackmagic cameras, this is going to be a great addition to your arsenal if you don't already have the camera control panel. And I think this makes a lot more sense than the ATEM camera control panel in a lot of ways, because traditionally someone who's doing coloring isn't necessarily adjusting multiple cameras simultaneously. They're switching between different ones, and so only having a single control, what do you call it? It's not really a fader, but a control stick. They're having a single one to control multiple cameras. I don't see as a real downside. You get across the left side there, you've got 8 buttons to select 8 different cameras. So you're able to jump between different cameras. The only downside to doing it this way is that because that is not the stick is not dedicated to a single camera, when you switch between one camera to another, the stick doesn't move to its appropriate position for the iris. So no, I'm sure they've worked out something there. Probably you should have to move it to where the current setting is first before you actually can make adjustments on that. But I think it's a pretty cool product, and if I use Blackmagic cameras, I would certainly be picking one of those up, because that's a lot easier than trying to do it on screen in ATEM software control. A lot less awkward. But yeah, pretty cool. A pretty cool product there, and yeah, excited that they're actually doing that for anybody who does use the Blackmagic cameras. Okay, let's see. The next section of the announcement all focused on DaVinci Resolve 20. A lot of cool AI features there. I'm not really going to talk about that too much. I'm not a Resolve guy. I don't use it regularly other than building LUTs. So I use other tools for doing all of my editing, and most of my coloring I still do in Premiere as well, because my color needs are pretty modest. But a lot of cool stuff with AI. So I'll just kind of summarize some of them. So you can have it automatically create a timeline based on a series of clips. So as you import a series of video clips, it uses AI in order to transcribe the dialogue, and then you can import a copy of your script file, text file, and it will automatically assemble a rough edit based on what dialogue is in the clips. And if you mark certain clips as the best take of something, it uses those, and then it lines up all the other ones as alternates. It has an AI music editor, which allows you to adjust the length of audio clips, and it will basically remix it in order to fit a certain length without having to speed it up or slow it down. So pretty cool there. That's something Premiere has had for a while. I'm glad to see Resolve is getting that as well. It's got a cool feature where it actually shows you the beat of the music on the timeline, so it makes it easier to do your edits according to that, and you can actually set those as snap points. That's pretty awesome. That's something I wish my editor did. Has a really cool AI voice conversion tool, so it's able to take one person's voice and make it sound like somebody else's voice. So one of the cool uses for that would be ADR. So you're not able to get access to an actor after the fact, after you shot something. You're able to basically recreate their voice using this AI feature. It has a dialogue matcher, which allows you to capture sort of the audio profile of when something was captured in one clip and then apply it to another. So if your audio in one clip is captured, say in a bathroom, and it's got kind of a echoey reverb to it, you're able to capture that signature and then paste that onto another clip in order to make that second clip sound like the first. That could be really especially useful for ADR, for example. So you can make your ADR footage sound like it was actually recorded on location. A new keyframes palette for the cut and edit screens. New layouts for working with vertical footage for the cut, color, and edit screen. So if you're someone who's producing online content that needs to be vertical, the user interface actually will shuffle around. There, I'll go back to me here. The user interface will actually shuffle around and give a more friendly layout for working with editing vertical footage. New AI smooth cut transition. I didn't really follow that. A lot of new features with regard to editing text, so your titles, new layouts, and so forth. Being able to edit PSD files, split the PSD files up into multiple layers, and edit those layers separately. That's one of the reasons I haven't used Resolve in the past, because I actually do take advantage of that capability in Premiere a fair amount. For your media pool, you're able to use cloud shared folders as virtual folders within your projects. You can rearrange the order of the clips in your media pool. When you're doing cuts with multi-camera footage, you can drag the selected clip right to the timeline. There's a new timeline safe edit, so you don't overwrite footage as you're controlling the in and out points. They've dedicated a way of recording voiceover tracks directly within the software. Brand new audio mixer panel, so it allows you to see your different tracks and the effects that are on them a little more easily. Metadata palette for if you have metadata on your clips and other footage, and dynamic trim, AI multicam, automatic switching, which is kind of interesting. So it's able to analyze the footage, determine whose voice is who. So even if it's something that's already been mixed down to a single audio track, it's able to determine who is who, and then automatically cut between different angles based on that. And it does that based on the voice as well as mouth movement. So it's able to analyze the video to see whose mouth is moving to determine who is talking when, and then automatically cut between different clips. So that could be a real lifesaver for a lot of people. In the edit view, you can view multiple timelines simultaneously. You can use using one as a reference, and then what they call an AI set extender. So if you got some footage and you need to sort of zoom out a little bit, you can extend what's there with using AI to build a virtual set, and they demonstrated making a room, extending a room, and then adding additional prop elements in the foreground. So, so somebody who knows Resolve better can do a much better job of following the updates that are available on that. But that's in DaVinci Resolve 20 beta, available for that, I believe, today, and the final version of that will ship in the coming months. Okay, last thing they talked about was Blackmagic Cloud and some things that they're adding to that. So just a couple small updates that he mentioned, that your storage associated with your video clips doesn't have to be linked to a DaVinci project any longer. They can actually just be stored in a folder in the cloud, and those cloud folders are now usable directly in Resolve, and it will give you previews on thumbnails on the clips that are in the folder, but it won't download the footage unless you actually drag it into your timeline. So, all right, some other software updates for the Cloud Store products, Cloud Pod, etc. They're getting SMB3 multi-channel capability, which allows you to transfer footage a little bit faster, as SMB signing for better compatibility with Windows, and they're going to be adding the NFS protocol here before too long, so fairly minor updates, but handy nonetheless. The next section they're talking about is updates for the cameras, various cameras that they have. So the first thing that Grant demonstrated was autofocus capabilities that are being added to cameras. This is one of the areas where Blackmagic has always lagged behind a lot of other manufacturers. Autofocus, their autofocus has traditionally been not good, to be kind, kind of unusable. So they're adding what looks like it should be pretty usable autofocus. So you have the ability to track specific objects or do facial recognition, or I wasn't necessarily sure of the difference, but they have two different types of tracking of objects. Like one where you just tap on the screen and it locks onto that portion of the screen, but another one where I guess it's locking on a specific object in the frame. The difference wasn't clear. And then with face recognition, you can tap on which face in the crowd you want to have it follow and focus on. So that's coming in camera software version 9.5 for certain models. It sounds like they're trying to add it to more models in the future. It sounds like for right now it was the Pixis and what was the other one? And Ursa Broadcast. I think it was the other one. I could be wrong on that, but that's in software version 9.5. And then version 9.6, they're adding a pre-record capability for their cinema-style cameras. So basically, you're able to say, have 2-3 seconds or whatever, where it pre-records, and so when you press the record button, the previous 2 or 3 seconds is actually recorded as part of that clip. That way you don't miss something that's happened. That's something that's coming This was definitely associated with the Pixis and then the Ursa broadcast, but likely coming to other cameras as well. So there's 2 different modes. We can press and hold to put it into pre-record mode, or we can set it to always pre-record through configuring that through the menu and setting the duration of that pre-record time there as well. The Micro Studio camera is getting a software update in order to allow you to connect a Pixis monitor via USB-C, and that adds the ability to control the camera via the touchscreen device. That touchscreen capability that monitor actually has. So it's going to be available as camera software update 9.7, which is going to be available soon. So anybody using the Micro Studio camera G2, that could be kind of handy. So extends the capability of that camera a fair amount. I'm not going to get too much into the other camera updates because those were more broadcast, but they're introducing a body-only version of the Ursa Cine 17K camera. I guess they've only had the kit with that one, so they're adding a body-only version. So if you want to reuse accessories from another camera, you can. They're doing some add-ons for the Pixis camera to make it more compatible with broadcast. So they're adding a top handle, which has a viewfinder and microphones on it, so you can do stereo audio directly on there. It has a couple programmable buttons on top as well, and then they're also adding a little handle that goes on the right side, so it turns it into a more of a camcorder style form factor. And that grip on the side also adds a power zoom lever, which can make the camera a little easier to handhold and use that way. They're also going to be adding the autofocus upgrade on that camera as well, so that'll be a very welcome update. Interesting thing about this is the Pixis cameras don't have the SDI input. They have an SDI output, but they don't have an SDI input, so you're not going to, at least as they exist today, are not going to have the camera control features that Blackmagic has always had on their Studio and Ursa cameras in the past. So I hope they come up with a solution for that. Maybe it'll be over Ethernet, because those cameras do have an Ethernet jack on them. But as of right now, you would not be able to do live coloring and controlling iris and focus and all that via the camera control features that are available as part of the ATEM software control and their micro camera panel and their camera control panel, etc. Last thing I'll mention here as part of this, and then we can get into questions and general discussion. They announced a Pixis 12K camera, so the Pixis in the past has been 6K, but they're doing a 12K version of it. Full frame 12K sensor, and it's going to be available in EF, L, and PL mounts. That's going to sell for $49.95 starting in July, which probably means December. But that's also, I believe that's also going to be compatible with the broadcast handle and Pro grip that they have announced as well. Oh, by the way, the Pro handle for the Pixis is $895, and the Pro grip is $119. So, costs you about $1,000 to add those capabilities to the Pixis cameras. So, but there it is. That's kind of the gist of it. In terms of which things I'm most excited about, I think that Hyperdeck Shuttle 4K is going to be interesting. That sounds really cool for doing video playback, so I'll be picking one of those up. Maybe a couple of the little mini video hubs. We'll see. I haven't thought of a great use case for that just yet, but I can see that just sort of being a great utility thing, especially with my fly pack where every input on my switcher is already allocated. Adding a little router in front of it and some of the inputs could be tremendously useful. One use case that actually does come to mind, so PowerPoint. So whenever I'm doing PowerPoint presentations with a lot of the business conferences that I shoot, I have four video sources for that. So I have the main presenter output, main PowerPoint or Keynote output, and then I have a second one for the presenter view, which shows their notes and then the next slide and whatnot. But when I do it, I also have a backup computer just in case. And having one of these little video routers to allow me to switch between those two without taking up 4 inputs on my switcher, that could be pretty useful. So I can see the little 4x2 being useful for that. Maybe even the 6x2 to add a third device that might be part of the mix there as well. So if someone brings their own computer with their presentation rather than running it off of one of mine, I actually have that routed with that. So, but that said, something like that would be kind of cool if they had an HDMI version of that had SDI outputs. Hint, hint, Blackmagic, if you're watching. So, anyway, But yeah, so those are the ones that I'd probably be most interested in. The constellation in the cloud, that I can see some potential uses for that. I've wondered if there was ways that I might be able to get in to start doing some remote production for small events. For large events, I think it still makes a lot more sense to actually be physically on site. But if I had a little package that I could ship off to somebody, and it has maybe a couple cameras and some inputs, video inputs, HDMI or SDI or whatever, I could ship off somewhere and then have all that stream up to the cloud, and I could do the switching up in the cloud for them. I could see that being useful. I could see that being pretty cool without me having to physically be on site. So it's expensive to pay somebody to travel, and I'm no exception. You know, I charge people for my travel time, and of course there's hotel and airfare expenses on top of all of that. So if I'm able to start doing some of that in the cloud, that could actually be pretty useful. So yeah, if we see this new Blackmagic ATEM cloud stuff actually starting to take off and become useful, that could be interesting. That could be cool. So yeah, other than that, I don't know that I saw a whole lot here that would be that interesting. Maybe one of the up-down cross converters, but I already have a decimator, 12G cross devices that I use for that, and that works pretty well. I will definitely be adding one of the streaming decoders, because there are going to be a lot of situations where I need to pull in a remote video source, and somebody that actually already has Blackmagic equipment. So I'd definitely be adding one of those. Streaming router could be interesting. Oh, another thing about the streaming router I forgot to mention. So you're actually able to use the Blackmagic camera app that's available on iOS, and I would assume it's going to come to Android as well. That feature is going to come to Android as well. But you're able to actually use an iPhone as a video source that you can bring into the cloud and then bring down to your switcher via that streaming router and the streaming decoder. So yeah. In terms of what I wanted to see that I didn't see, I still want to see their Smart View and Smart Scope monitors get updated. Those things are really old and have pretty lousy LCDs on them. I'd love to see a new version of those. That's kind of the big one that's been lacking for me. And the other one is, even though I'm grateful that Blackmagic finally did come out with a 4K product that can be used as a camera converter, the one that they came out with doesn't have all the features that I would like to have. So hopefully at some point they'll do a new product that does that. But I kind of get the impression that they're not going to be extending their fiber product line other than adding 2110. So yeah, all right, let's go over to the comment section. I was also really disappointed, and I think I mentioned this, that they did not do a new ATEM SDI Extreme ISO, just the HDMI. So, alrighty, so I'm just going to have to read these things. So Jason's saying 2110 is in its infancy. Give it time. It has incredible potential, and the decklink card is proof of that. 32 potential channels of video into a single machine. Just think about that. The interesting thing about that in particular is that they could potentially be giving themselves more competition with some of their products. So having that many video inputs coming into a single computer allows something like vMix to be used in place of an ATEM. So one of the reasons I don't use vMix very much is because I don't have any computers that have enough inputs or enough processing capability in order to handle a lot of the events that I do. But yeah. Okay, let's see. I think I probably skipped ahead too much. Got a bunch of hellos from all over the place. Sweden, Slovakia, Germany, Japan, Finland, Minneapolis, New York. Nice. Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Okay, so Grant Butler saying, I like how there were a couple of times when Grant was like, that name's a bit of a mouthful, and I was just like, and whose fault is that, Grant? Yeah, for sure. Like, he knows that their product names are way too long and too complicated, but yet they've never done anything about it. So I've had that complaint for a long time. And if you guys saw my April Fool's video that I did 2 years ago, I produced a video about a fake product that never was actually real, but the ATEM Mini Vertical Social ISO G2 something or other. The name just went on and on, making fun of their tendency to have names that are way too long. So okay, yeah, we got MM saying the Hyperdeck shuttle was so cool. And then Jason, the new ATEM is an HDMI, should have released new Extreme for each platform, including 2110. And a 2110 based ATEM could be interesting. We'll see. I bet that will happen at some point, but obviously not yet. So okay, does a Hyperdeck Shuttle Pro M2 storage allow 4 terabytes? I would assume so. And 4 terabyte NVMe drives are easy to get a hold of now and pretty affordable. And so Chio saying I see pre-orders up for the new ATEM. I'll just share my screen so you guys can kind of read along that way. That's a little easier. It's unfortunate that my overlay is not working. Okay. Did anyone else catch Grant opening the possibility that eventually DaVinci Studio upgrades would cost money? Yes, he did kind of gloss over that. So up until now, they've never charged anybody to upgrade Resolve Studio. So if you had got a license for it 10 years ago, you're still getting those software updates for free. So it sounds like they're probably rethinking that a little bit. So, but at the same time, the fact that they're only charging $295 for that software, I can't imagine the upgrades would cost much. So, yeah. Okay, so then Aaron saying, I wonder if this means they'll pull back from supporting the original Extreme ISO devices in the replay workflow. I would say probably not, at least not for a while. They just barely introduced that, so yeah. Okay, let's see if outside the U.S. can afford to buy Blackmagic products due to customs duties. Well, products are not made in the U.S., so that's probably not going to impact the rest of the world. If anything, it's going to impact those of us here in the U.S. because they're made overseas. So yeah. Hello, Doug. Thanks for doing this. Apologies if I missed this. Is there any mention of SDI model for inputs and outputs? No, not at all. Waiting on a separate audio panel for these. I'm surprised Blackmagic has not produced an audio panel for ATEMs just yet, because they're clearly interested in having people do their audio production on the ATEM products. That became very evident with the television studio updates that happened a couple years ago. So, but they really do need to have a panel for controlling that. So I can promise you that no audio guy is going to want to use software to build their audio mix. So, but does it have a sting button? Well, I didn't see one, but we also didn't look in too close. So, yeah. So they could. I mean, they can do stings via Resolve now with the new software updates that they've got going on over that Thunderbolt connection. So, all right. Is there an SDI version of Mini-Extreme G2? No. So far, no. I can't imagine they'll let that go too long. So I imagine we'll see an updated SDI version of that before too long. I was thinking about getting an ATEM Mini Pro for some more simple live streams, but wanted some SDI to test some fill key stuff, but nothing else I have is SDI, so maybe this new Extreme is what I want. So you can still do fill and key on a switcher with HDMI. Well, if you do it through Resolve, it happens over that Thunderbolt connection. But if you have a separate Hyperdeck or one of their other devices that supports fill key, like an Ultra Studio or some media player, some of these others, you just have to convert the HDMI outputs to SDI. So I haven't tried that to make sure that the timing of that lines up perfectly. Because if you're using a device that has an HDMI output but both SDI and HDMI outputs for the main output, and then you only have SDI for the key portion of it, and you have to convert that conversion is going to cause a little bit of a delay. I haven't tested that with any of their converters to know if that's enough of a delay to cause a problem. In most situations, I'm guessing it would probably okay, but there might be a handful where the timing lines up just right that it doesn't work properly. Let's see. It's going to just cost me way more than any of their other things I've looked at. The price increase on the ATEM is disappointing. So, yeah. Agreed on the SDI G2 model. Yeah, they need one. So it'd be a great breakout room switcher, but it's actually too fancy and too expensive. I would say the same thing, Aaron. So I think for someone who wants a separate breakout room switcher like that, one of the older ones makes more sense. So yeah, and it's particularly if you have to do something remote, the SDI versions are going to be better anyway. So maybe pick up an SDI Extreme ISO now, and so you know you have one available. So Jason said yes, one is encoder, one is decoder. I did eventually figure that out. So is the streaming encoder just a rename? Would they have got the web presenter if it was? So in the stream, he basically said that it was a rename, but the fact that they're both listed on the website makes me doubt that a little bit. But he did explicitly say in the live stream that they took the web presenter and they're renaming it. So yeah. I know they didn't talk about anything in the presentation, but he did mention the rename. So kind of lucky Doug didn't get the chat graphics. He's too busy to look at chat. I would have paid more attention to chat if I had the graphics working. So I would love a Mini with a mix of SDI and HDMI. That would be kind of cool to have at least one HDMI input on the SDI models, and I don't see them putting SDI on the HDMI models, but yeah, having an HDMI input on one of the SDI models would be nice, because we're always connecting up computers, right? We always have some sort of video source that's HDMI. So, all right, why no Dante anywhere? Can't get past the licensing. The license. Well, Dante isn't just licensing; it actually requires hardware. So Audinate that makes Dante actually produces cards that go into these products. And then that is what does the Dante functionality. So, if you're someone like Yamaha, you're not actually making Dante encoder decoder equipment. You're just interfacing with an Audinate card. So, in order for Blackmagic to add Dante to any of their products, they would have to incorporate Dante hardware specifically from Audinate. So, yeah, it's not just a firmware update. It's not just a matter of writing code. They actually have to accommodate that extra hardware in there. So that doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. I mean, we have Dante Virtual Sound Card for Windows and Macs. So it can be done in software, but there are some issues with that, primarily regarding latency and whatnot. So anyway, streaming router cloud, unlimited sources for free, $2 per destination. So the $2 was just a guess. He was estimating. He was not committing to that. And it was $2 per month, and $2 per destination per month. So, all right, Tom saying, can't wait to see everyone at NAB show. Yes. So I'm driving down Monday morning. I will be getting into the show floor pretty early. So it's about a 5-hour drive from where I live. So I'll be showing up on site not long after the show actually opens, and then staying through the end of the day Tuesday. So anybody who's watching this isn't going to be there. We're going to do just kind of a very small informal get-together at the Blackmagic booth at noon on Tuesday. Just meet at kind of the front of the booth. Just going to say hi. We're not going to there's nothing happening beyond that, at least nothing formal anyway. So, did they present a camera setup for a B4 mount lenses? No, they did not. So, yeah. What's up, Streaming Genius? Very, very kind. So, if you do outside broadcasts with changing light, for example, live music, one control for all cameras is not sufficient, I think. Maybe so. But what they could do, though, is have kind of a single control that affects all cameras. So if you're mainly concerned about exposure, having a button that adjusting the iris up and down affects all cameras at the same time. So, but that's not super common. So most of the situations that I work in, lighting doesn't change that much that quickly. So yeah. Okay. So in terms of the autofocus, the first is marking an area of a screen and whatever is in that area is in focus. The second was select part of an image, and no matter how the camera moved, focus tracked that part of the image and kept focus. Okay, so you're marking an area that focuses on, doesn't follow the object around. Got it. Can you suggest a good intercom system? I love Riedel Bolero, but nobody pays the rent. There's a number of decent systems out there. I mean, if you're looking for something that's affordable, you can pick up a used ClearCom system. They're pretty cheap. particularly if you just go to a company that has used it and just buy it off of them. If you go out on like eBay or whatever, Facebook Marketplace, they get a little more expensive. But I've heard many people talk about how they pick up an entire multi-user intercom system for under $1,000 to get a used one. If you're looking for something brand new, I would seriously consider doing something Dante based, because by the time you factor in everything that you need, getting stuff from Studio Technologies or Glen Sound as far as belt packs and whatnot doesn't cost any more than a Clearcom analog system. So I would definitely consider that. Other than that, stay away from EarTech. They sound terrible. The Hollyland stuff that I've demonstrated and reviewed here on my channel is decent. I still use that stuff when I can't bring my Dante base setup. So that's a decent way to go as well. Okay. Simple phase detect autofocus. There are 4 buttons: AFS, AFC, tracking, and face tracking. Okay, that does clarify things a little bit. So I'm hoping they'll do some kind of rack device that can do multiple HDMI, SDI conversions, and vice versa in one package. We've been asking for that for a long time. There's a lot of people who would be able to take advantage of that. So HDMI to SDI and vice versa, really go both ways. So getting like 8 channels in a single rack unit, that would be pretty awesome. But it doesn't seem to exist yet. So yeah. Still want an Ultra Studio style device that's basically a Decklink Duo in a 1/3 or half size rack unit. Yeah, don't know an easy way to pull that one off. I think there are probably some Thunderbolt to PCI Express devices that you could rig into a rack space. I know one company at one point was producing something where you could mount one of the older style Mac Minis into a rack, and it gave you PCI Express expansion. So yeah. Okay, I'm still waiting for SDI or for a rack-mountable bidirectional converter or a video hub with both HDMI and SDI. A lot of us would find that be very useful. Did they present alternatives to their fiber lineup like 2110 IP? So some of the products they announced today were actually had 2110 IP capability, but they didn't replace any of their existing products. They just more added new ones to extend the functionality that they've had. So using one of those mini routers to switch between main and backup PowerPoint is a genius idea. I'm not sure if it's totally worth the price though. It would be a no-brainer if a few hundred less. Those mini hubs might be a little pricey for what they are, but they are also 4K. So if they were HD only, they would be nice. They would likely be cheaper, but they are 4K. So yeah, Studio Technologies is pretty nice. Yeah, it is for sure. And I've used the Studio Technologies belt packs for several years now and been very happy with them. They work great, and they're great. They're really great about doing new features and software updates too. So I've talked to the guy who designs the stuff, Gordon, a number of times at NAB. He knows who I am from my YouTube channel. Nice guy, knows what he's doing, and their staff is actually very helpful too. So very often, if you see something that a product might be capable of doing but doesn't have the feature available quite yet, if you reach out to them and explain why it's useful, they'll try and implement it. So yeah, Studio Technologies is fantastic, great company. I've liked their products and like working with them. So I like the Hollywood Solidcoms. Yeah, they're Solidcoms are a good basic intercom unit. So I would have no hesitations recommending those, and I've been using those for like 4 years. So I have those Solidcom, but integrating Dante-based Hollywood Solidcoms and BMD intercom using the Studio Technologies units. So that's actually shouldn't be that hard to do, so I'm doing that. So I use the Blackmagic intercom. I use the fiber-based stuff, the studio converter, the fiber-based studio converter, and the camera converters, and then interfacing that into my Dante. And that's just done, in that particular situation, that's just done using an AVIO adapter, the AES version, because that's the BNCs on the back of the studio converter. Use AES3. That was nice and easy to do. And then getting audio in and out of the solid comms. That's just analog audio to the 4-wire. So I built a custom cable, and then I use a couple of AVIOs, one input, one output, in order to incorporate that audio into my intercom. So that works really well. So. Well, they did update the software and manual for the converters today, making the 2110 IP and 12G SFP available. And yes, it takes legacy baseband SFPs. That's cool. That's cool. So I will have to take a look at that. I'll actually pull that product up. So go to products. That's probably under broadcast converters, maybe. Yeah, the 2110 stuff. So we're talking about this one right here, the 8x12G SFP. So take a look at the back of that one. This guy. So it has 8 SFP ports and then 8 SDI ins and outs. And these are primarily designed to work with 2110, but it sounds like they are going to support the SMPTE style SDI video. That could be interesting. That could be cool. That could be a decent replacement for their older studio converter product, which, let's see if they still list that. Last time I checked, they still had that on their website. So it's under ATEM. It's not there. That may be the end of it at this point. So yeah, they previously still listed the talkback converter down here at the bottom. So, but I'll do a search here. Talkback converter 4K. So, yeah, it's gone. It's not listed on the site anymore. I don't know whether that means they've discontinued it or just don't consider it important enough to be listed there on the site. But so, yeah, very likely could mean that they're done with it. So let me also look for ATEM camera converter. Yeah, that's also gone from this page as well. But that's been gone for a while. They still sell it. They still manufacture it. At least they have up until now. So, anyway. All right, let's see. I'm curious if you have much experience with or knowledge of the competition for mini switchers, Yellow Box, OC, Rode, etc. If so, thoughts about how you think those compare for smaller jobs. I haven't used them myself. That's a segment of the market that I don't really work in. Like most of the jobs that I do are bigger than what any of those things are capable of. So those products are not ones that I would personally buy. And generally speaking, the only time I bring in products like that for testing and to do videos about when I know there's a lot of demand for them and the revenue coming in from my YouTube channel is enough to purchase those and cover the costs. For the most part, I'm not going to buy a product with my own money that I'm not going to use. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So yeah. Okay. All right, so Emerald saying, yeah, it's your approach I took to get there. That's the hybrid with the Hollyland and ATEM converters and whatnot. Okay, the older one is gone today, so studio converter, yeah. Manual states the new one takes the baseband one. Awesome. So I'll just pull that up and show that to anybody who might be interested in that. So that's going to be under broadcast converters, 2110 converters, manual here. So converter models. That's the right section? Looks like probably not. Oh, 4x12G, and then yeah, I guess we're in the right place. Okay, there's the 8x12G, and then the back 5. Supports optical fiber SFP input supporting optical modules for 2110 or 3G, 6G, or 12G SDI video. There you go. Yeah, confirmed. There it is. So anybody who needs to support the legacy fiber with newer products, that's how you do it with the 8x12G SFP converter. So yeah, and based on what limited testing I've done with some of their other products that have that same capability, the SDI version has much lower latency. Basically undetectable amount of latency than all the 2110 stuff, delayed 2 to 3 frames. So makes it a non-starter for me. But the fiber stuff, the SDI style fiber stuff, basically no latency. So yeah. All right. Not buying a product if you don't need it. You bad consumer. Yeah, I'm terrible. So I got too much stuff as it is. I don't need more stuff laying around, that's for sure. And I'm especially not going to be wasting money on something I know I'm not going to use. Part of the problem, well, not really a problem, it's probably what makes my channel as interesting as it is for certain people. I won't review something unless I put it through paces in real world scenarios. You know, if I can't use it on a production where I'm working for a paying client, I'm not going to do a review of it, period. So, in fact, that I don't do any productions where I can use one of those tiny switchers means they're not that interesting for my channel. So, yeah. Great BM NAB tour. Thanks, by the way. If the Blackmagic stuff is produced in Australia, it will be 10% more expensive. I don't. It's not I'm pretty sure it's not manufactured in Australia. I think they have other places. I think I've done other places. I can't remember where they do it. Pull up a box for a product. See if it says. See where it's manufactured. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't see anything on this box that says where it's manufactured. But that's going to be, it's going to be based on where it's manufactured, not where the company headquarters are, I believe. So, and let's see how all that stuff shakes out too. Personally, I think a lot of the stuff that Trump is doing with tariffs is just trying to. He's making those steps to get other countries to reduce their own tariffs so that we can sell more stuff from the U.S. overseas. So, yeah. I found that the 2110 IP stuff isn't quite as mature yet, and yes, there's that delay. So, yeah, the 2110 stuff, it was really buggy when it first came out. It's gotten better, but it sounds like they haven't shaken all the bugs out of it just yet. So I'm not sure that it's quite production ready. Well, at least some of it anyway. But yeah, we shall see. So, all right. Do you guys have any other questions about any of this stuff? I do have to be going here before too long. I have yet another meeting today I have to get to. It's a busy day for me. That's for sure. So we'll give you guys another couple minutes to get any last minute questions in, then I'll wrap it up. In the meantime, let's see if I do this right. I'll kind of go through the presentation here, see if there's anything that we needed to. So there's that new monster ATEM, the 4K plus. 40. Well, it goes from 40 to 80 inputs and then 48 outputs. So it's a monster. And then, failed to mention this. So one of the new software updates for ATEM software is coming to allow you to basically link the various MEs that are on the multi-ME models, 2ME, 4ME. You can set it up where some of the higher numbered MEs will follow what you're doing, what you're switching on ME1, and then actually substitutes a video source. So say, for example, you camera 4, it's a wide shot. Instead of cutting to that for IMAG, you can cut to maybe a close-up or something like that. But otherwise have the two switches follow one another exactly. So So that's actually pretty cool. So that's going to make situations where you have to do iMag and live stream simultaneously a lot easier. This is a feature that I had envisioned being added via third-party software. I didn't realize Blackmagic would eventually do it, but I thought that would be kind of cool in order to do that. So I have a different way I've done it. I have demonstrated here on the channel where I use the downstream key to overlay something that needs to go to iMag that doesn't go to the live stream, and then use a clean feed to feed the recording. But they're adding this capability to the ATEMs directly. All right, so there's that new HyperDeck shuttle 4K Pro. Pretty cool. And by the way, I'm doing shuttling through this using the HD version of that. So, all right, there's the connections on the back. So, oh, by the way, before I go too far, their new switcher. Go back to where they showed the back panel. Yeah, their prototype doesn't have the talkback inputs on it, so that was added after they built that one. Not talkback, timecode. So I meant timecode. All right, see what else we got here. What day am I hitting the expo at NAB? I'll be there Monday, Tuesday. And there's that new camera control device. And the new ATEM, Mini Extreme Pro, or Mini Extreme G2, Extreme ISO, Mini Extreme ISO G2. Yeah, their product names really are way too long. Okay, there we go. That's the new audio, full screen audio display. So, yeah, without a separate controller, I kind of find that silly, to be honest. So, and he's demonstrating replay here. So there's your multi-channel video coming in from the switcher itself. It's not a copy of the multi-view output of the switcher. These are actually 8 separate feeds coming in directly from the switcher over that Thunderbolt connection. So you're able to monitor in real time. That's new. They hadn't done that previously. You can view the multi-view output on with the last software update, but cloud. Did we miss the? Okay. Streaming bridge. Anyway, all right. Let's see what else we got here. I'm going to buy the Pixis 12K, not for the 12K, but the 16 stops of light and readout speed of that glorious sensor. I love that we have you, Aaron, Brandon, Alex, John, etc. as YouTube resources for live production. You all do excellent videos. Thank you. Appreciate it. So. ATEM 4K Plus is a monster for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That shuttle is something else. I think the new shuttle, they've actually figured out a way to take advantage of the big, nice weighted jog dial in a meaningful way. Because the previous one, the fact that this guy, the fact that it has no display makes it next to unusable in a lot of situations. The fact that it's HDMI also makes it difficult for me to use. But I realized they were trying to create that for people who are using ATEM minis. So I reckon we'll see an SDI version of the ATEM by IBC. That wouldn't surprise me. So just want to add more support for the idea of either a new ATEM switcher with a mix of HDMI and SDI, or a device with a bunch of converters built in. I hear that all the time, absolutely all the time. So yeah. The 8 feeds was using a 10-bit connection, basically playing back the 8 ISO files. Yeah, it's 10 gigabit connection over the Thunderbolt. So you can do it over Ethernet, or you can do it over Thunderbolt. So that's from what I gather. So, but the Thunderbolt gives access to that 10 gig network as well. So yeah. Anyway, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, yeah, let me know in the comments of this video which of the products that you saw today are most interesting to you, which ones you're going to be investing in, which ones you want me to see bring in for review, and also what you'd like me to focus on at NAB when I'm down there. So I'll be at NAB Monday, Tuesday. So yeah, let me know what you're interested in, whether it's Blackmagic or whoever. So I mean, I'll be wandering around the show quite a bit. So I'm actually going by myself this year. I don't have any friends going with me. Neither of the friends that I typically go with are available this year. So I'll be by myself, and which means that I'll only be seeing the stuff that I'm interested in, not the stuff that they're interested in. So yeah. One last question. Would you take the Constellation 4K Plus over the 8K Plus since it's cheaper with more outputs? Well, the 4K Plus is more expensive than the 8K version, but 8K version's never been appealing to me anyway. I'm never going to be doing 8K video, and it doesn't add anything that I can think of that the 4ME 4K doesn't have. The 4ME 4K is a couple $1,000s cheaper, so I would personally save that money. They're not doing as many software updates on the Constellation 8K as they are on the newer ones. So said they're making Bluetooth panels, Bluetooth only cables work in a professional setting. Well, you can do USB, but it would be nice if they had Ethernet so they connected directly to the network. So if they had a hybrid of the mini SDI video hubs and the new HDMI Extreme ISO G2 for that PowerPoint scenario you talked about, that would be perfect. That would be kind of cool. So thanks for this stream. Safe travels to NAB. Thank you. So I will be driving by myself, so that'll be interesting. So enjoy your weekend, and most of all, enjoy NAB. I wish I could go. So NAB is awesome. So yeah, if there's ever a time you can make a trip out of it and go and see it, it's pretty cool. And I mentioned this on the channel several times before, but if you go to NAB just to see the gear, you're not taking advantage of what the show's all about. So I think the best part about NAB is networking with other people in the industry, but more especially networking with the people who create the products that we're using. So the manufacturers not only bring sales reps to the show, they also very often bring the technical guys that are in the trenches designing the gear. And I love being able to have that opportunity to talk to them, to find out more about how the products work, or to offer feature suggestions and explain why I would like to see certain features implemented. There's been more than one time when I've mentioned something to somebody and it shows up in the product later on. So having that interaction, it's the only way to do it. If you go through normal support channels, you're never going to get a chance to talk to the guys that are designing products unless it's a really small company. So if you're dealing with a big company like Blackmagic or whatever, and you want to talk to the engineers, this is about the only way you can. So yeah, so that's why I go to NAB more than anything else. But also for those of you who watch this channel, I go to try and establish relationships with manufacturers. So I got a few companies that I'm going to be seeking out this year that I haven't talked to in the past. And yeah, so yeah. Okay. Well, that's going to about do it. So thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks for watching. Again, share your thoughts in the comment section or join me over on Discord. I should be able to do my Discord graphic here. Wait, let's see. I have to hit the right button. So where is Discord? There it is. It's playing but not overlaid. And that's because... There we go. There we go. So yeah, so if you join over on Discord, we'll be talking about NAB stuff over there on that Discord server. So join us there for a more lengthy discussion than what we can do here in the comment section on YouTube. So okay, well, thanks everybody for watching, and have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic weekend. If you're going to be at NAB, be sure and join us at Blackmagic at noon on Tuesday for just a quick say hi and put faces to names, etc. So anyway, that's going to do it. So thanks everyone, and we will see you later.